You could hallucinate in the Matrix as easy as anywhere else. Count Zero is the sequel to Neuromancer, published in 1986. It's the second story in the Sprawl trilogy. It does not feature Case, the protagonist of Neuromancer, but we see the fallout of his accomplishments. Because of that, this review will include spoilers for Neuromancer. The titular AI of the first book, Neuromancer, along with Wintermute, merge at the end of that book, and through that, they spawn countless other AI that go into the cyberspace, into the Matrix, as what people perceive as voodoo gods, or Loa. This story is slightly more accessible and more coherent than Neuromancer. The prose is much better, which is amazing because the prose for the first book was already fantastic. William Gibson has just gotten better and better. Although there was one chapter in particular that I was having trouble with, and I Googled Count Zero chapter review, and the first link was a Reddit post that featured chapter 14, the chapter that I was stuck on, that I was like, what the hell just happened? So if you get to that point and you get confused, just keep going. You're supposed to feel that way. So unlike Neuromancer's singular point of view, Count Zero has 3 POVs that eventually converge satisfyingly at the end of the book. You have 3 different plot strands that seem to have nothing to do with each other, but they're all integral to each other's resolution. We open up the book with Turner. To understand Turner, we need to recognize something about this particular future that William Gibson has illustrated. Corporations have become more significant than any nation, and employment with these corporations require a sort of indentured servitude. Your job is secure indefinitely, but this goes both ways. When you sign a contract to work for a specific company, you work with them for the rest of your life, and you can't leave. You are obligated to work at this place until the day you die. Now, certain other competitive corporations may find a particular talent that they want in their hands, but they're already claimed by another corporation. So what they do is they hire mercenaries like Turner to go and extract these people, these experts, and bring them to their new company safely. Now, opening the book, Turner has just been blown the hell up. There's barely a fragment of his body left. But because he's so important and because he has such a great work history, he's been brought back. It's taken months of reconstructive surgery. Turner is vacationing in Mexico after being put back together, recuperating, having memories come back, having his nerve, his edge come back, when he meets a woman named Allison on the beach. And he gets into a deep, intimate relationship with Allison. And this is new for him because he's never been with a woman before whose loving wasn't professional, if you catch my drift. He loves Allison. Unfortunately, Allison is actually a psychologist who is there studying Turner, waiting to give the go-ahead to their mutual employer that he's ready for his next job. Just as Turner starts to feel comfortable, that's when the boat arrives. And on that boat is another mercenary named Conroy. Conroy recruits Turner for another extraction. They are contracted to extract one Christopher Mitchell from Moss Biolabs, and they are to bring him to Osaka, a rival company. Mitchell is an important asset. He is an expert at designing what are called biochips, which are stronger than any silicon-based microprocessors. They are a medium that exceeds any other means of computing. And at this point, Moss is the only company capable of creating them. This is why every other company wants Mitchell, is because he's the one who's brought this technology to Moss Biolabs. But of course, Moss is not willing to part with him. So when the jet supposedly carrying Mitchell is shot down by Moss's railguns, Turner rushes to go and save the man, but instead finds his 17-year-old daughter, Angie. Angie was always meant to be extracted, but no one else knew this except Mitchell. You see, he sacrificed himself, giving his daughter a chance to escape. But this wasn't wholly selfless. You see, his daughter is the most valuable asset to Moss. You'll have to read to find out why, though. For now, we're going to move on to our second POV, Bobby Newmark, whose handle on cyberspace is Count Zero. So he is the titular character of this book. Now, Bobby is a small-time hacker, a console cowboy. He's really a wannabe Case, the protagonist from Neuromancer. He's almost like an insert for the reader who wanted to be Case in the first book for whatever reason. Now we follow Bobby as he's given an extremely rare piece of equipment that he incorrectly assumes is an icebreaker. Now he shouldn't have trusted the contact that gave him this. You see, this technology isn't an icebreaker. Let's explain what an icebreaker is. ICE stands for Intrusion Countermeasure Electronics, essentially security systems on the matrix or cyberspace. Icebreakers are what hackers use to get through this security. Now, the most sophisticated versions of ICE are able to send back a signal of sorts back to the hacker and kill them, stop their heart remotely. And this is exactly what happens to Bobby on his very first run as a hacker. He was being used as a guinea pig by those who sold him this piece of equipment, because they don't know what this is either. And as Bobby is being killed, he feels his heart being stopped. Intrinsically, he knows he's going to die, and this is all happening within a split second, but of course, time in the cyberspace, time in the matrix is a little bit different. A lot can happen in very few seconds. He suddenly has this vision or an impression of some sort of cyberspace angel, some woman, her voice, her figure, and suddenly he's released from the ice. He throws off his deck. It's a helmet thing of sorts that they use to jack into the matrix. He's in shock because his heart has just been pretty much assaulted by this sophisticated corporate level ice. He's miraculously still alive. So Bobby wisely leaves the house because he knows that if the ice was able to track him back to where he is, then whoever sent it knows where he lives. Very soon after he leaves, his home is bombed with his mother still inside. Whoever was after him assumes maybe he's dead. But moments later, he's mugged and loses his deck along with what he thought was an icebreaker. He's rescued by these worshippers of the Loa, the voodoo god AIs, who see him as something special because they recognize, they were kind of watching him because they wanted to see how this technology affected him, and they saw that he was assaulted by this ice and somehow he lived. And they think the Loa have something to do with it. Now, we saw that Bobby had this hallucination of a woman. As a reader, you can assume that, oh, maybe this woman must be a Loa, it must be one of these AIs. So now, Bobby gets his wish. He's a part of this group who are on a mission that requires him to jack into the cyberspace. And he's super happy about it, even though all this crazy stuff's happening. His journey sees him go into the sprawl, which is the name of the series. The sprawl is this massive megalopolis, wider and denser than anything you could imagine. Finally, we have our third POV, Marley Krushkova. Marley Krushkova is the former owner of a Parisian art gallery who has been disgraced after being fooled into selling a forged painting. And the only reason she avoided prison for this is because of the unmatched wealth and string pulling of Joseph Virek. Virek is the only one of his kind. Corporations have replaced individuals. Modern day, we have people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, we have people like Bill Gates. At this point, that just doesn't exist anymore, and Virek is this relic of that past. And Virek has saved her specifically because he wants to recruit her, he wants to hire her. He wants Marley to discover the origins of a strange piece of artwork, a box that fits in the palm of your hand with some vague, seemingly random objects inside that weirdly seem to provoke an emotional response. They make you sad looking into it. No one can explain why. It's literally just a box full of just perhaps trash, something else. It's never perfectly explained because it's never perfectly designated as anything. It's completely vague. Her lifestyle is suddenly elevated. She has an unlimited amount of credit, whatever money she needs, whatever resources she needs to discover the origins of this piece. But Virek isn't what he seems. She's only able to visit him in cyberspace. She sees a construct of Virek. And this is because Virek's physical body is within a vat, and it's mostly composed of cancer cells. They've used biotechnology to sustain this man well beyond the point where he would die by utilizing cancer cells that reproduce indefinitely. So they keep the cancer alive, they keep him alive, so he's just this mound of flesh in a vat. Now, he's sick of this, and you can tell pretty early on that he's looking for an alternative and a way out of this. For whatever reason, it gives me this like Bioshock, Fallout, or maybe even like Borderlands-y kind of vibe of a character. But he's very sophisticated. If he were in any of those franchises, it would elevate the franchise significantly. And eventually, all three of these POVs come together in a very satisfying way and an unexpected way. But through that, there is perhaps a flaw, but really it's a mechanism that William Gibson used. Throughout most of the story, the beginning and middle, so like the first and second act, Turner has a huge amount of agency. He's propelling the story forward. He's a very capable character. He's a very active protagonist. The other two protagonists are kind of being pulled along in these other storylines, and they're still interesting, they're still very interesting, but of course, because Turner is active, they're always kind of waiting to get back to his thing in a way. This was done on purpose, of course. But towards the end of the book, Turner is no longer very active. He has to hand off that agency to the other characters. As for my personal thoughts, some aspects of this novel are better than Neuromancer. The writing on a sentence-by-sentence level, paragraph-by-paragraph level is better. It is progress with William Gibson's skill at writing in general. However, it doesn't exceed Neuromancer. It comes very close. It comes quite close. It may have to do with just the novel aspect of what Neuromancer was. Even though Neuromancer is so incredibly influential, it still has this originality to it. Its vibe is still very much its own. And I think it's why it gets so many good reviews today. But if you see some bad reviews for Count Zero and it turns you off from reading it, I'd say ignore those. Just jump into Count Zero, give it a shot, give it a try, and don't worry about chapter 14. That one's just fucking confusing. It's supposed to be, apparently. So I've got a couple of notes here. Page 218, they reference ray tracing. Cyberpunk has had ray tracing since 1986, apparently. The novel is generally less dismal than Neuromancer, too. So if you felt it was dragging you down a little bit, don't let that put you off from reading the sequel. One other interesting aspect to this story that you see in Bobby's POV, as well as others, is that soap operas are actually a thing you jack into the Matrix to experience. They're broadcasted, so they're actually like filmed using decks, so you feel what these people feel. It's not just a visual experience. And you can purchase higher end gear to have a higher resolution, more realistic experience within these soap operas. And Bobby hates them because his mother is absolutely addicted to them. And her addiction goes so far back that he has prenatal memories of bullshit soap operas that plague his dreams. He has sudden dreams of people who he feels intrinsically are like family, but they're not. It's this kind of haunting feeling. And so his mother's real life is more like a second life to her. I'm gonna leave this off with a great quote concerning Marley's strategy at finding the origin of the box. It doubles as a recommendation from Gibson himself on how to approach the reading of this book. Each tab of holofiche also housed an extensive report on the known origin of each piece. But something in her had deliberately avoided these. It was sometimes best, when you came to the mystery that was art, to come as a child. The child saw things that were too evident, too obvious to the untrained eye. My band Sleep Cycle just released a progressive rock album called Beautiful Grey. I'll have the link in the description. Please hit the like button, hit subscribe, and we'll see you next week.